Hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Echoes of the North Tracing the Viking Cultural Legacy. I'm Haika, and I'll be your host today. With me, our amazing speakers,
Reva
and
Linda.
who will dive into the modern and alternative views on Viking culture. Alright, so today we're going to explore how Viking culture, through centuries old, still echoes through modern society, from myth and media to language and even values. So our goal is to take a closer look at the legacy of Vikings, not just through a historical views, but also how they are perceived today and the ongoing debates around their image. Alright, we will cover several topics like the origins of Viking society and then myths surrounding them, how they are portrayed in modern media, and aspects of their culture as well. So get ready to set sail with us to the world of Vikings. So Reva, let's talk about Vikings. So who are they exactly?
Thank you, Haika. Now let's travel back in time to the era of the Vikings. The Viking Age spanned from around the late 8th century to the early 11th century, originating from what we now know as Scandinavia, modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. These seafaring people were known for their daring voyage across Europe and Vienna. But, contrary to the common stereotype of Viking rangers in worn helmets, the Vikings had a complex and rich society. Daily life in Viking communities was rooted in agriculture.
Okay, so they weren't just barbaric after all.
Yes, most Vikings were actually farmers, craftsmen, and traders, not full-time warriors. They lived in long houses, shared communal meals, and had social structures that include jarls, carls, and trolls. So, interestingly, Viking society allowed more freedom for women compared to other culture at that time. Women could own property, request divorce, and some even fought alongside men in battles, like the legendary Shalt maidens, though historical evidence on them is still debated. And the Viking were also explorers and settlers. They reached and raided parts of England, Ireland, and France, but they also established trade routes as far as Baghdad and even settled in places like Iceland, Greenland, and briefly North America long before Columbus. So, while the image of the Vikings as a fierce barbarian persists, history tells a much deeper, more nuanced story, one of innovation, exploration, and culture impact.
Okay, thank you for the amazing insight, Reva. It's fascinating to see how much there is to the Viking community than there is in the popular stereotypes. But now, let's shift perspective. How the world interpreted this legacy? How have media and modern culture shaped or perhaps distorted the image of the Viking?
Thank you, Haika. So I want to talk about alternative viewpoints on Viking culture, especially about how Vikings are seen today in both media and modern society. Their legacy and other things linked to their life. But first, let me ask you guys, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Viking?
Well, personally, I think of I guess they were warriors and with their iconic helmets, no?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking they are brave and resourceful community.
Yeah, so most of us picture them as fierce warriors with horned helmets, shields, and battle axes. That's a very common image, and honestly, it's not surprising. Today, the way we imagine Vikings is heavily shaped by modern media. TV shows like Vikings, The Game, Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, and even movies like How to Train Your Dragon, yeah, have all shaped how we imagine Vikings today. But historians point out that the horned helmet is a myth. No archaeological evidence supports that Vikings actually wore them in real life. And these shows and games also focus a lot on violence and fighting. They make Vikings look like all they did was raid and destroy. But the truth is, they were also traders, artists, lawmakers, and even settlers who lived with and learned another cultures. And today experts say Vikings very differently than people did in the past. A long time ago, during the colonial period, Europeans like to think of Vikings as strong, hairy ancestor, basically tough men who took over everything. But now, experts say that Vikings were more complex. They were fighters, yes, but they were also smart in making deals, and they often worked with other people across Europe and even parts of Asia. Yeah.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, even some experts still debate how we should remember them. Were they cruel invaders or were they just part of big world where people shared ideas, traded goods, and moved between culture? What we do know is that Vikings traveled far, made important trade routes, and sometimes even followed local traditions. And even today, the Viking legacy is still alive. For example, many English place names like those ending in by or troops come from the Viking language. Some English words like sky, egg, and knife also come from them.
So, is there any other modern thing that is still affected by the Viking culture?
Yeah, in fashion, we now see Viking-inspired runes, braids, and symbols becoming popular again. But these symbols are sometimes misused, especially by groups that want to use Viking history for the wrong reasons. That's why experts like Neil Price and Judith Chas say we need to learn about Vikings from their own stories, like the Icelandic sagas, and from things found in archaeology, not just from movies or games. These real sources help us understand what Vikings believed, how they lived, and what really mattered to them. It shows us that their culture was rich, interesting, and not just about fighting. So, in short, the Viking legacy is not just one thing. It's full of different ideas, surprises, and lessons that we're still learning about today.
Okay, let's go around. Do you think the Viking legacy today is more of a positive cultural inheritance or does it risk glorifying their violent past?
Okay, so I think the Viking legacy gives us many positive things. They were not just fighters but also explorers and traders who helped connect different cultures. Their influence is still seen today in language also, place names, and modern culture like movies and fashion. So I believe their legacy is more positive and still important today.
Well, I think it's both. The Vikings left a rich legacy and exploration, trade, and culture, but we also can't ignore the violence in their history as a historical analyst. I believe we should appreciate their impact, but not glorify the brutal parts.
Okay, so beyond the cool aesthetics and mythology, there are deeper values that still resonate, like bravery, exploration, and even democracy.
Totally, they're not just what the word assumes they are, like barbaric and harmful. We can also see positive values there are.
I agree. The fact that their culture still has a positive impact in this modern life means Vikings, they are more than just an aesthetic.
Okay, that is very interesting point of view. Thank you so much, guys. Anyway, we have covered a lot in this podcast, from the historical roots of the Viking Age to the way they have been portrayed in modern media, and finally, the living legacy they have left behind. What we have learned is that the Viking culture ain't just about raiding and conquest. It's complex. They trade, they explore, and a lot of other things. And they left behind a lot of culture in our society today. Well, alright then. Thank you so much for joining us in this discussion about Viking. Alright then. See you.